Going to Kansas City. If I could, I could, I could, I could. I'm going to Kansas.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. My name is Emmanuel Cleaver III.
And I'm Emil Cleaver.
We drop new episodes on Tuesdays. Check us out. Most places you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. So we're still talking about 50 years of hip-hop, one of the greatest art forms, and it was created here on American soil. But a few weeks ago, one of the legends of hip-hop, Melly Mel, went on an interview, and I guess he's done a few interviews.
Yeah, so Melly Mel, for those who don't know, was part of Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. They had a big record called The Message, which is one of the greatest hip-hop songs of all time.
Arguably
the songs, arguably the greatest hip-hop song of all time. And basically the song is just what it says. It's a message. Back then they believed in saying something. But they were one of the pioneer groups. I think that this record came out probably in 79, 80.
It was early, somewhere around there.
Yeah, somewhere around there. But they were one of the early signees to the Sugar Hill Records, I believe. And, they were one of the Sugar Hill Gang was the first rap group, but Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five was far more respected in hip-hop.
Came out in 82.
Because they were around for the creation of it more so than the Sugar Hill Gang. No disrespect to them, but they were more of a group that was put together by a record label where Flash and the Furious Five were a group brought together by the love of the music and just rose up and became national figures in hip-hop and are pioneers. So,
all right.
Grandmaster Melly Mel was the lead rapper of that group, of Grandmaster Flash. He was the lead rapper of that group. So, okay, go ahead.
So, yeah, and had some other classics other than The Message, but The Message is the one that transcends generations. But he was on he did a few interviews. One was called The Art of Dialogue, and I think he went in even on Vlad TV. But he made some claims that upset a lot of the newer rappers and rappers who have been around. One thing that he said was, he was asked about Vibe. Was it Vibe magazine? No, Billboard. Billboard magazine put together the 50 greatest rappers of all time.
Right,
so the first
That's how it sparked.
Yeah, first issue is he said there are not 50 great rappers.
Which I would disagree with.
You think there are 50 great?
Okay, well, maybe not 50.
Yeah, no.
Ain't
no 50
now that I
great
think
rappers.
about it, yeah.
So, so he's like, there aren't 50 great rappers. There might be 50 rappers that you like, but there aren't 50 great rappers. And for that, I would agree. There are not, because he threw something around that I think happens all the time. He said that people throw the word great around a lot.
Exactly.
They throw the word legend. They use that in MMA way too much.
Yeah.
Call people, everybody's a legend. Yeah. How can everybody be a legend? And so I think society, we use the word great and we use the word legend too much. And so that was what he had one of the things he had issues with. I think another thing he had issue with was he was number 48 on the list.
Well, that was a big issue to him. Number 48, and in his mind, he believes he's the greatest rapper of all time, or at least one of the greatest. I mean, it seems like throughout the interview, he big up LL. So, I mean,
he said it's big up to Busta and
Busta too,
and Black Thought,
Busta Rhymes. So yeah, but he believed that he wasn't the 48th greatest rapper, and he may be right, but I mean,
he is right.
It's subjective.
Yeah,
it's subjective.
So, but he was like, so who are they to put out a list? So that's the question is, who's qualified to do a list? I mean, because that's what he's like, who gave them the authority to name this list? But at the same time, I mean, I think if you're listening to music, part of it I agree. If there is like the list, then yeah, you got to get, not anybody can just contribute to that.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's hip hop, so nobody, you can't control. Anybody can make a list.
Right.
It doesn't mean that it's an official list. I think because Billboard is so big, people paid attention to it. But I mean, anyone within hip hop who grew up listening to hip hop, who loves hip hop, knows the Billboard is not really qualified to give the best.
It was a bad list.
It was a terrible list.
It was not a good list at all.
So, but yeah, I mean, you can't control who does what with it. It's in the air. And once it's in the air, then, you know, it's up for anybody to grab, and they can interpret it and regurgitate it the best way they know how.
Yeah, I think anybody who really listens to hip hop can give their list.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't tell people that they can't have a list. Now, if there were some, and it would never be official, but like some real big list, then maybe you get some legends and some folk who are highly respected in the industry. But I mean, my thought is, I listen to hip hop, been listening to hip hop for decades, so I'm qualified to give my list.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. It's just my list.
But see, Billboard, I think another thing that I don't think he talked about it. Well, maybe he did, Melly Mel, talk about, but it's a popularity contest. And you have to, it seems like everybody wants to say, we're watching the greatest in our era. I mean, when the greatest of all time is always in the present era. I mean, you always have to find the GOAT. So in this top 50, you have a lot of these younger rappers who maybe who one day will be one of the 50 greatest rappers, but maybe haven't put in the work yet to be on that list. But, you know, like I said, we live in a society where everybody wants the greatest to be right now, you know, and when that greatest retires, they're going to find another greatest of all time.
Yeah, a lot of, like in basketball, a lot of folks saying LeBron James, although a lot of people still say Jordan and others. But there are some, like, I always like Jordan's answer when he's asked who the greatest is. He said, you can't compare. It's different eras. You can only compare eras. So he thought it was unfair to say this person. He said, I never played against some of those other people. So how can you really compare? Compare me with the people I played against. And that makes sense. But, yeah, you are right. So a lot of the folk on that list, and I'm like, man, how did this person get this high? Putting folk way, I mean, I think they had Rakim like in the 30s. Some crazy number.
Yeah, and that just goes to show Billboard doesn't understand, because they have to take into account that Rakim changed the way people rap, literally. I mean, it's not, when we say this, it's not figuratively. And Melly Mel talks about this, how Rakim, when he came along, everyone before Rakim had to change the way they rap. And everyone after Rakim changed the way they rap, or they took something from Rakim and came up with their own style. But the way that rappers flowed, their flows changed after Rakim. So to put him in the 30s.
It's ridiculous. Even Jay-Z. Jay-Z in the interview said that Rakim was the only rapper that he had no peers during his height. He said he talked about him and Nas. He said when he was around, it was him and Nas. And then he talked about Biggie and Tupac. But he said when Rakim was at his height, he had no peers. It was just Rakim.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to go against him with the lyrics that he was spitting. But yeah, so I mean, you have to take into account. I mean, I know they want to have a lot of these younger people on there, and they should. You know, if they're having 50, some of them should be in there. You know, right. J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar. I think Kendrick Lamar was number 3 or something like that.
Yeah, something.
But yeah,
he might have been. He was up there. But here's another question. I think when people put out these lists, you need to say, how are you qualifying the list? I mean, what makes these rappers the best? Because you can measure it in a number of different ways. Because you can say, okay, you can look at record sales. If you ask me who the best rapper is, record sales has absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm not looking at record sales.
And yet, and so, yeah. So people out there watching, let me tell you why record sales don't matter who's the greatest of all time. Because you take someone like Eminem, and then you take someone like Talib Kweli. Well, Eminem's marketing budget was probably 10 times that of Talib Kweli. So, of course, Eminem is going to probably sell 10 times that of anyone else, So that's why you can't count record.
Now, Melly Mel did say he didn't think Eminem belonged on the list.
Yeah, I thought
at all.
We're going to get to that.
Now,
But yeah, go ahead.
well, let's get to.
I thought you got to
about what?
record sales. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So, okay. So yeah, record sales, and plus, if you look at somebody like Eminem, I remember back in the early 2000s, they were playing Eminem here in Kansas City on white radio stations, but they weren't playing any other rappers. He was the only one.
Yeah. So
I mean,
a lot of
that's why you can't
Eminem's
count
fans, and
record
this isn't no way diss to Eminem, because anybody who's real and honest would tell you that Eminem
can go.
He's a very, very good MC, but a lot of his fans are not hip hop fans. I have a white friend who once said the only rap, and he listens to rap. He listened to rap, but at that time he told me the only rap CDs he had ever bought in his life were DOC and Eminem's, the Marshall Mathers LP, that first Eminem album. Those were the only two. So, that just goes to show that he wasn't really an Eminem hip hop fan to the core, but he's gonna get Eminem, and a lot of other people are like that.
Same happened with the Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
they
same with
came
the
out.
Beastie Boys, and that's why they sold, ridiculous amounts of records, because they grabbed a whole new audience. Just because they were doing the Elvis, they were doing black music very, very well, and people were attracted to it.
And all them, the Beastie Boys were good. Eminem is a beast. So again, it's no disrespect to them, but that's just the reality of it. Yeah. It is, and I think I heard Eminem even say that.
Yeah, he said it in his rhymes.
He's
before.
even said it. So
if he was black, he would, wouldn't be, he wouldn't probably have the hype that he has. But no fault of his. He's supposed to take advantage of everything that's thrown his way.
Say no.
But
Melly Mel, he's talked about Lil Wayne. He said Lil Wayne wasn't a real rapper, which Lil Wayne, although if Lil Wayne's good, I'm not knocking him. He's not one of my favorite, but I recognize that he did change the game too.
Yeah,
I
question
recognize
about that.
People who came up after Lil
him,
Wayne looked to Lil Wayne.
Right.
So you can't deny that.
And that's why Lil Wayne, after that list came out with a new song that's is pretty good, and talking about no one alive, dead or alive, is better than him.
Yeah. But where was he on the? You remember?
He was way down. He wasn't even in the top 10. I don't think. Maybe he may have been 7. I can't remember, but he wasn't anywhere where he thought he would be. But yeah, he was offended, and he definitely had people follow his style that came from the Lil Wayne hip hop school. So his mark on hip hop is unquestionable. But yeah, Melly Mel was he kind of went off on a lot of the newer rappers that came after him. Eminem, he got on of course he brought up the white thing, the white issue, about him selling records because he was white, and if he was black, then he wouldn't be selling nearly as much as he's selling. So that was brought up, and Lil Wayne was one of the names that he brought up. He even talked about Kendrick Lamar. He's saying that nobody wants to rap like Kendrick Lamar. That's one of the indicators of being a great MC, that after you come out, people want to imitate your style. And he's saying nobody is coming out like Kendrick Lamar. I would say one of the reasons is because it's too hard.
He's just one of those styles you can't imitate.
Yeah, he definitely has a style that if you come out trying to sound like him, it's almost blatant. You'd have to be blatant because his style is too hard to emulate. Although I understand with Melly Mel, I was right, number 7. Lil Wayne was number 7 on the list.
Rakim was higher than he was 13, which is still insane.
Yeah. So I understand some of the points. Melly Mel was saying, and I believe he just wants his props, because if you look at in rock and roll, Bob Dylan and Paul McCartney, they're praised in rock and roll for being pioneers, and the younger artists still want to work with those guys. But in hip hop, it's not the same. A lot of the younger rappers that are out today, like in their 20s and younger, have no idea who Melly Mel is.
That's the sad thing about it.
And in rock and roll, it is completely different. Like I said, Bob Dylan and Eric Clapton, all those guys are praised and worshiped in their genre. But the old school pioneers, Grandmaster Caz, Melly Mel, those guys, they're not getting the love that they should. I don't even think Grandmaster Caz was on that list.
No. If he was, I missed it. I don't think yeah. So, I mean, but it goes back again. I mean, Billboard can't do our music, and so they are not authorized. Because some of this, but I'm going to go back to what's the criteria. If you're going to give a list, what's the criteria? So I have different lists. I have my favorite rappers, and then I have the best rappers. And those aren't necessarily the same.
Yeah,
I'll acknowledge.
A lot of people can't
Right.
distinguish between the two.
Yeah, I will acknowledge when someone like Lil Wayne is not one of my favorite rappers, but I have to acknowledge of what he's done. I mean, can't deny it.
Yeah, because too many rappers today are his sons, so
Including Drake.
Yeah. So I mean, there's too many that have come from that school of Lil Wayne. So you have to give him his props. But this goes back to a long-running issue in the black community. The older generations not liking or hating on the newer generation of musicians. This is nothing new from old blues and jazz. I mean,
Gospel too.
Gospel, when Charlie Parker was coming up, people hated on him, this new little style of bebop and all of that. People thought this, you're messing jazz up and all that. So Little Richard and what's his name that made Cadillac Records from Muddy Waters and all those guys. I mean, they were, when they came out, the older generations didn't just flock toward their music. They were hated on. So it's kind of going back to that, going in circles with the black music. Melly Mel, who's in his 60s, came out in the 70s or 80s. You could say he came out in the 70s.
Yeah.
And he's not feeling. He doesn't like the new generation of hip hop music. It didn't take the direction that he thought he wanted it to go in.
Well, yeah, that's been going on with hip hop when it went down south. When hip hop really reached south, hip hop coming from New York. I remember that award show where Outkast won.
Yeah,
and they booed him in New York.
So Outkast won the Source Award, which was, back then, I wish we still had something like the Source today, but the Source Awards, which was the ultimate hip hop award show, Ultimate Hip Hop Magazine had an award, and Outkast won what was the best new group, and it was on this event was on the East Coast, and Outkast got booed. I mean, this was their breakout record,
so they
album.
Play Holistic Cadillac music.
And they got booed. I mean, years later, nobody was booing Outkast. But at that time, even East Coast, everybody booed them because they
different sound.
Hip-hop came out from New York, and New York was real protective of that sound. And so if you didn't come from New York, you weren't real
Have
hip-hop.
you heard any Big Gips interviews?
Yeah.
Man.
Big Gipp is another one. He's going pretty tough. And
he goes hard on New York.
Yeah. And
Big Gipp from Goody Mob, one of the rappers of Goody Mob.
They're from a down south Atlanta group. But yeah, New York, and they were really like that. I mean, you can't say that they're imagining things. New York was real protective, and they felt like only real hip hop came from New York. And then the West Coast came out, and the West Coast kind of dominated the rap scene, and then the South came and they kind of dominated, and you could say they still are. They haven't let go of it since. But yeah, a lot of old school rappers I don't think they're ever gonna feel rappers from the West Coast and the down south, and even any of the new young rappers. The sound is just too different from what they have, and Melly Mel is one of those examples.
I have a friend from the East Coast, and he doesn't like any West Coast rappers. I'm like, you don't like Snoop? No. You don't like Ice Cube? No. And then so I was thinking, okay, maybe you like that sort of underground hip hop from the West Coast. So I started, what about Del the Funky Homo Sapien, Hieroglyphics, all of them, Souls of Mischief, Far Side, Freestyle Fellowship? Nope. And I'm just like, man, you just look at where they're from. That's all.
Because there's no way you couldn't like Souls of Mischief. I mean, that's crazy.
But so what is the criteria? If you're putting together a list of the best, I'm a respect Melly Mel. I'm agree with Melly Mel. There aren't 50 greatest. So if you're putting a list together of the 50 best MCs of all time, what's the criteria?
One of the criteria is having to say something when you're talking, saying something. Influence. How you influence the whole genre of rap. That's a big part of it. Originality, all of that. But yeah, changing the game. Saying something, being lyrical. Not
Content.
not just saying some fluff.
So and even with the wordplay, how clever are you with the words? I mean, you can say something real basic, and it not sound good, but you can give the same thought, but saying it in a clever way. I mean, like I think of Eric Rakim says, thinking of a master plan because ain't nothing but sweat inside my hand. I mean, he could just say, I don't have any money. Yeah. But he said it in a clever way. So I dig into my pocket, all my money spent, I dig deeper, still coming up with lint. I mean, that's a clever way of saying, I'm broke, I have no money. So I'm looking at how clever are you with the words. I'm looking at metaphors. I'm looking at content. I'm also looking at, do you talk about the same thing every time? How diverse is your subject matter?
That's important.
I mean, I don't mind. Okay, you can talk about the bling. You can talk about destroying other MCs. But I need it to be diverse. I mean, I need you to talk about more than just clothes.
And that's why Tupac is always going to be high on my list, because he knew how to talk about different things. I mean, he talked about everything from A to Z. But yeah, this is I mean, the criteria needs to be said, and hopefully one day somebody's going to come out with, I guess there's no definitive list, but a very close list of everyone, on board, and not just one coast and not just one generation. But yeah, there's a
list that's debatable, that you can actually, I mean, you're not going to ever agree. I mean, everybody's not going to agree with all 50, but at least one that's debatable. It's hard to, debate this list when they have, somebody like Chuck D in the 40s, and I'm not going to name some of these other rappers, a lot of rappers in front of them. It's hard to debate this list when, you have somebody like KRS-One, who's number 24, and you're naming 23 rappers that are better than him.
It's hard to do. There's not 23 rappers that are better.
Missy Elliott, who's mostly a producer, is in front of KRS-One.
Yeah, I mean, Missy Elliott, she's up for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with a Tribe Called Quest this year. Missy Elliott's greatness is not so much her lyricism, even though she has some clever wordplay, but it's just her uniqueness. She knows how to put together a song. Yeah, she knows how to make a great song. Yeah. She just knows how to make a great song that makes you feel good and want to have fun.
So I would say there's another list. Okay, we can say your favorite rapper, lyricist, and then I don't know what to call the other one, best rapper, and that's where you would also consider record sales. Well, record sales isn't everything, but you're looking at everything, their impact, style, their voice, all of that. I mean, I guess you could, make a list out of that. Because if I made that list, the person I have as number one would not be on my regular number one list. I mean, if I'm honest, if you're looking at record sales and everything, I mean, it's hard for me not to put Tupac at number one.
Yeah, it's
I
hard.
mean, they're still
It's hard.
making documentaries on this man. There's one 4-part documentary series about he and his mother.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
it's hard not to put Tupac on any greatest list up in the top 5, top 3, number 1. I mean, his impact is undeniable. And I was watching some podcast today where they were talking about how T.I., when he was on the front of some Vibe magazine and he was dressed like Tupac, you know, that influenced somebody like T.I. who has his own thing, you know, has his own style and everything, but Tupac's influences.
Well, when 50 Cent came out,
undeniable.
he
Yeah,
said,
50
I want
Cent.
them to love me like they love Pop.
Yeah, so yeah, it's hard not to put Tupac on any list, but yeah, I don't think he was. What was he on in that list? Was he?
He was in the top 10.
Yeah, I think he was.
I mean, it's.
Yeah,
I mean, because I'm sure Billboard is looking at record sales.
Yeah, before the year is over, this 50 year of hip hop is over. We need to do one of a tough list, the top 25, the greatest rap groups.
Yeah,
something like that. That's gonna be a tough one.
it is. I mean, the list today was tough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those are the things you have to look at when you're talking about putting together a list. What is the criteria? And I've never seen anyone put together a list or the criteria. They just start listing, saying, you know, this person, that person.
Yeah.
So we don't know what Billboard was using to come up with who they thought were the 50 greatest, even though there aren't 50 great rappers.
MCs. Yeah.
There may be 5, maybe more than that, but definitely not 50. So we said, you know, who can decide? Because that was the thing that Millie Mel brought up. I understand his point, but if somebody listens to it, you can decide your list. I mean, you don't say this is the list.
It might not be respected, but
so I bet if I put together my top MCs and took it out to the East Coast, it probably wouldn't be respected very much.
Yeah, me neither, because in my top 10, it would be hard to keep Ice Cube off of it.
Yeah.
And Tupac. And I know they don't. Yeah.
They might have Tupac, a lot of East Coast
Yeah.
people. But yeah, but it's not going to be all East Coast folk. I mean,
No,
even in my top
definitely.
5, there might be some disagreements. But let us know what you think. What is the criteria for who you would call the best MC?
And do you listen to music by a younger generation, or do you still listen to the artists that you grew up listening to, and when they release music, you go listen to them? You know, you go buy their new music, or you're listening to their old music, or do you check out some of these newer artists? I know I definitely try to check out newer artists. I was listening to Currency the other day, last night, matter of fact, some Currency. But yeah, I try to listen to a lot of these younger rappers. I didn't. At one point, I didn't.
Yeah, me either.
It seems like I was going in that same direction that a lot of us go into. I'm gonna mess with my generation and only, and maybe the older generation. But yeah, I definitely try to listen to some of these younger cats and get into what they're doing. Yeah,
I've been listening to lately a lot of Logic.
Yeah, Logic
Checking
is
out
good.
Logic.
He's a lyricist. He got in trouble a few minutes, you know.
But if Drake can say it, why can't he?
Yeah, I'm just
So
saying.
those who don't know, Logic is a rapper, half black, half white. He used the N-word and folk went off on him. But my thought is Drake, who's half black and half white, uses it. Why are people? I know why. Because Drake got a little more of that black gene in him than Logic did. That's all it boils down to. But they're the same.
Yeah, they're the same.
They're the same. Just
Drake looks black, and Logic, he looks more white.
yeah.
Just put it like that.
But he has he's half black, just like Drake. So people got mad at him. But my thought is, if you're not gonna get mad at Drake for saying it, then I don't think you can get mad at Logic. But Logic is nice. I know he and Joe Budden got into it. I don't know if you saw that, but
Joe Budden always gets into somebody.
I know. But there was a while I didn't listen to any of these new cats, and I was like you. I was like, man, thinking hip hop's supposed to go in a different direction. But Now I listen to a lot of them. I mean, some of it I'm just not feeling. I have to be honest. A lot of
some
it I'm
of
not
it is
feeling
very
it.
good.
But
Some of it is very good. Earl the Sweatshirt, and of course Kendrick, J. Cole, Currency, Ab Soul. I mean, there's a few of these younger cats that I'm listening to, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Some nice one. Meek Mill isn't bad.
yeah,
Wale.
yeah. I mean, they're getting up there. They're not.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, they're like the middle, like J. Cole said. They're the middle child. So yeah, I guess I need to start listening to some even younger, some cats in their 20s. So that's probably why I haven't done. Listen to all the babies that are out right now. Today we thought we'd give the list of the top 5 rappers from the South.
I thought rap groups.
You said you're doing rap groups from the South?
Yeah, I thought that's what, man.
Man,
You
okay,
didn't read
whatever. Okay, I can put together groups.
Okay, well let me
From the South.
So the criteria is the same that we were saying: influence, musical content. So you have to have lyrics. You have to say something, and then the actual music, the beats, are game changing. Your influence in hip hop is great, and I mean you change the game. So I'm gonna do my top 5, and I'm gonna do the honorable mentions. First of all, my honorable mentions, and a lot of people may disagree with this. My first one, people are gonna think this group may be number 1, but my honorable mentions of best down south rap groups. So honorable mention is UGK. A lot of people probably think they're number 1. They're number 1 on their list. UGK, 8 Ball and MJG and 8 Ball. 2 Live Crew, and Nappy Roots. So those are some of my honorable mentions. Top 5 greatest rap groups from down south. Number 5, the Academy Award winning group from Memphis, 3-6 Mafia. They had the themes, the club themes. I mean, they're the kings of the club music. I mean, they have you dancing in the clubs, skipping in the clubs, fighting in the clubs. They have all of it. 3-6 Mafia, they won an Academy Award for their song It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp.
Hard Out Here for the Pimps.
Yeah, for I can't remember the name of that movie.
Hustle and Flow.
Hustle and Flow, yeah. So they wrote that song, and they won an Academy Award for it. And, of course, you know, we were down in Little Rock when they first came out, so that's probably another reason why I see their influence. I see how influential they were. But 3-6 Mafia is number 5 on there. Number 4, I got the Hot Boys. Hot Boys out of New Orleans. Lil Wayne, BG, Turk, and Juvenile.
Yeah.
So they could have been higher. You know, they didn't stay together long. They were all solo artists, but they came together, Cash Money Records, for a few albums, and they could have easily been the greatest rap group from down south and one of the greatest rap groups of all time if they had stayed together long enough. But their influence is great. I mean, Lil Wayne, like we said, he alone changed the game. So the Hot Boys is number 4 on my list. Number 3, I'm gonna go with rest in peace but the Migos. The Migos definitely changed the game, changed hip hop. People are now following what they do.
That's true.
The way they flow, the way they talk, some of their wordplay and all that is being mimicked nowadays. So I have to give them props. They're from the ATL, Atlanta. Of course, one of their members, Takeoff, was just murdered in Houston. But yeah, definitely have to give Migos their props, and their music's gonna live on, and we'll probably be hearing more groups coming out sounding like Migos. So Migos is number 3. Number 2, one of my favorite groups of all time, the Ghetto Boys, coming out of Houston. Willie D, Scarface, Bushwick. Even though that wasn't the original lineup, but that's the lineup that
blew up,
that made it happen. And they had Reddy Red making the beats, really soulful sounds, a lot of Al Green samples, and a lot of that Southern soul sound. And they had lyricism. Scarface, one of the greatest MCs of all time. He just makes you feel what he's talking about, feel his words. Great lyricist. Willie D, great writer. Bushwick Bill, great voice. So Ghetto Boys, listen to him many times. They street politics, gangster, whatever they talked about a wide variety of things as well. So yeah, Ghetto Boys, number 2 on my list. Of course, number 1, greatest rap group from down south. I don't think it's very hard to debate or come up with any other group, but it's now that I'm doing this list, I just realized that I left a group off.
I think I know. I have them on my list. I don't know.
So number 1 was Outkast, obviously, but I just realized that I left Goody Mob off the list.
Yep.
So I would have to probably put Goody Mob at number 5 and probably knock down who did I have number 5? 3 6 Mafia. So 3 6 Mafia would make the honorable mention. I would have to put Goody Mob and part of the Organized Noise clique, but they were a very soulful group. CeeLo Green, Big Gip, who's said some controversial things lately
about New York mostly.
About New York rappers. Yeah. But yeah, that's another group. I completely forgot them. I don't know how I forgot them, but they are the cousins of Outkast, who's number 1 group. And they've collaborated many times together to make great music. They started out with the same producers. I think Outkast started producing their own albums at their 4th album. Yeah. But yeah, they Outkast is definitely number 1. So let me run back over that list since I had to change it midway through. Number 1, Outkast. Number 2, Ghetto Boys. Number 3, Migos. Number 4, Hot Boys. Number 5, Goody Mob. Now, if I was just rating my own personal opinion, I would have probably Outkast, Ghetto Boys, Goody Mob. But I recognize the Hot Boys and Hot Boys and Migos would probably be above Goody Mob as far as influential, just to be honest. But yeah, that's my top 5. 2 Live Crew is another down south honorable mention.
All right, so my honorable mentions. 8 Ball and MJG, those boys out of Memphis. Been in Little Rock, heard a lot of them. Yep. UGK,
Underground King.
Yeah, they could probably be in the top 5. It's debatable.
Easily. A lot of people probably would have.
It's debatable. Bun B. If you looked at the best rappers from the South, Bun B is probably going to be on most people's list. Yeah. Here's another honorable mention, real close to the top 5 that you forgot, that you didn't even talk about, Little Brother.
Oh, my
They're
goodness.
from
I
North
forgot
Carolina.
they are from down south. Yeah. And because their sound, they have such an East Coast, I guess you would say East Coast backpack rap type sound coming, from that native tongue school. So sometimes you forget that they're from down south. But yeah, I definitely forgot them. They're definitely close to that top 5.
Absolutely. They from North Carolina. Yeah. Made some classic songs. The more I've been listening to a lot of them lately, because I didn't listen to them when they first came out.
Their last album was actually my favorite album. The last album they did. I know a lot of people like the Minstrel Show. Yeah.
So if we list the best rappers from the South, Fonte would be high on my list.
Yeah, he's very influential.
Yeah,
Drake, has given him props about. He was one of the rappers that he really followed and listened to.
Yeah, you can hear it too. So number 5 on my list, I have the Hot Boys. Okay. Just because they put New Orleans in terms of hip hop on the map.
Definitely.
And of course, Lil Wayne broke out and did his thing. Juvenile. He did some stuff, but didn't he fall out with them?
He's back with them though.
Is he?
Okay. Him and Baby did an album together, and he's back with Cash Money.
Okay, so Hot Boys and then Migos. They did. Like you said, they changed. If somebody goes skirt skirt, you know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
You're the Migos stuff. I probably shouldn't put them high. This might be me just because I like them, but I'm gonna go ahead and put Goody Mob. And I'm looking at not just their albums, that classic soulful album, that first album that they came out.
Classic. Soul Food.
I just don't know if there are too many albums better than that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that.
It's hard
That's a
to
great,
have
great
an album.
The music, the beats, and man. And they were saying something. They had something
absolutely.
to say. They definitely have something to say.
I would have CeeLo Green up there on my list in terms of rappers from the South. But then just looking at what he did beyond Goody Mob, you probably can't count that. But that first album was just too good. Number 2, I have the Ghetto Boys, classic songs, Mind Playing Tricks on Me, which I learned a few years ago was originally just Scarface's song.
Yeah.
And what's his name? Owner.
Jay Prince.
Jay Prince said you need to let the others get on it.
It's a group song. We need to make this for the group. And it became their biggest hit.
Their biggest hit. So I remember because the last verse, Bushwick Bill's verse, Scarface wrote. And I remember he was on when Ed Lover.
I thought Willie D wrote it.
No.
Scarface.
Scarface wrote, he had those 3 verses, his 2 verses, and then the one that Bushwick did. And so he was on Rock the Bell radio, the LL owns on Sirius, and I think Ed Lover was interviewing him. And so he's like, you hooked Bushwick up. And Scarface said, no, he hooked me up because that was our biggest hit. And it may not have been as big a hit without him on it. One of the great songs. Then, of course, it's hard to deny Outkast. I mean, if you just look at greatest list, period, whether you're from the South, Midwest, East, or whatever, Outkast is going to be on your list.
Easily make the greatest rap group of all time. Easily. So, yeah, it's hard to deny them number 1 greatest in the South.
I'm sure there are a lot of other groups. I know Two Live Crew. I mean, they made a name. They weren't known as lyricists. I mean, let me tell you that.
They made a lot of dance music.
Yeah, so they knew how to make music. I mean, Uncle Luke. I guess he had to drop the Skywalker.
Yeah.
But he knew how to make some music, and he knew how to sell that music by making videos.
Yeah.
That go with the music.
You got to give the Poison Clan. Another group down south, made some noise.
There are a few others. So
yeah, there's some groups.
Let us know of some other groups that we may have missed. Some hip hop groups from the South. Nappy Roots. You name Nappy Roots.
Yeah, name Nappy Roots.
Another group out of North Carolina. I mean, that's some Little Brother and Nappy Roots.
I think Nappy Roots was out of Kentucky.
Were they?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure
maybe
they were
I
out of
thought
Kentucky.
that because they hooked up with Anthony Hamilton, who was out of Charlotte.
Yeah.
But okay. But yeah, another hot group that I think a lot of people have forgotten about. Because as I'm looking up and reading, people's thoughts on great hip hop groups and rappers, rarely see. I don't think I've ever seen anything on Nappy Roots.
Yeah.
But then again, who's putting together these lists?
Yeah,
probably
you look at
people
it down
from the coast.
south. I bet you some down south lists definitely have these people on there.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking if you ask, depending on where you are in the country, if you say we're not considering record sales, and you just talk about who the best rapper is, I mean, you're gonna have. If you down south, you're probably gonna hear people like Andre 3000 on the list.
Definitely.
Scarface, absolutely. Some people have
Bun
T.I.
B, yeah.
Lil Wayne up there.
That's probably top 5 right there.
Yeah,
what we
true.
just said.
Well, some people. Well, you heard Ludacris. Ludacris gets left off when people start talking about Atlanta, and I can't say why. Big Gip says why he's not mentioned in Atlanta rappers. Well, I'll say it because he said it. He said it because he was hanging out with New York folk too much.
Yeah.
And the folk in Atlanta from the South forgot about him. But there is bias when it comes to
regional
hip-hop,
bias in music, in hip hop music. There's regional hip hop bias.
If you talk from people from the Midwest, you might get a little different list.
Yeah, because Yeah, I mean, some people here listen to everything.
Yeah,
we absorb everything. But I will say there's a little real strong Bay Area love fest here. We like here in Kansas City. I think at one point we were considered the cousins of the Bay Area rappers because there's a lot of them that come here and a lot of Kansas City rappers that go there. So the Bay Area in the South, I would say, is big influence in Kansas City now.
So I'm surprised you didn't name the Click.
Oh yeah, but they're not down south.
Well, yeah. That's right. They're Bay Area. That's Bay. Yeah. So when you talk about Bay Area, but you got like, Too Short, and you got E40, but then you got a different style in the Bay when you got the hieroglyphics. It's a completely different sound. But they're all from
they're
the
going
Bay
on their
Area.
tour
Yeah,
for their.
They're already on it.
Yeah, and they're coming to Kansas City.
Are they?
Believe. Yeah, pretty. I'm sure. Pretty sure they're coming to Kansas City. I thought I saw that they were coming to Kansas City.
I might
Maybe
check that
Lawrence,
out.
but yeah.
I saw. I barely missed. I met Opio, one of the members of Souls of Mischief. Me and Bourne went to Lawrence when we heard Tribe Called Quest was there years ago, and we missed it because I'm like, why? I was thinking, why in the world are they going to Lawrence?
Yeah, that's the hot spot for hip hop.
Yeah,
Still is.
Yeah, I didn't
Still
know it back
is.
then, and so they had
Went to many shows in Lawrence.
Souls of Mischief opened up for them.
Yeah.
And we missed it, man. Let us know what you think about Warren. What's the criteria you have for best rapper? Let us know who you think the best groups are, best hip-hop groups from the South.
And next week, we should have a special show. So
Yeah, you
stay tuned.
Stay tuned on our social media pages. There'll be an announcement about the next show. It's still dealing with 50 years of hip-hop, but we're looking to have some guests. So stay tuned. Check us out. Most places you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Chopping It Up with the Cleavers. We drop new episodes on Tuesdays. Check us out.
Peace.
I'm of the models, here I am. I come, that's where I'm from. I say I'm going.